Welcome to this edition of the Hoel Roofing and Remodeling Podcast. Today our special guest is George Fitzgerald. Little quick backstory on George. George is the first one to hire me in roofing sales space. So, it's really where it all began. So I'll let him introduce himself and we'll just kind of swap some stories here about training and hiring and all that fun stuff. So George, Take a minute and introduce yourself. Tell us about your lovely wife and your family.
Okay. Well, George Fitzgerald, and originally from New Jersey, moved to Indiana, now North Carolina. I was fortunate enough to meet Bob in Indiana when I was here in Fishers. Little quick story about myself. I'm married, 5 kids, beautiful wife, together for 30 years, married for 28. When I was in New Jersey, I had a drop ceiling business, small contracting business, a lot of interior stuff, and moved to Indiana in 2007, and I was going to do the same thing with the drop ceiling business, interior work, all that good stuff. Then the economy, 2008, 9, and 10 came along and kind of beat up my business, and I got into the roofing industry. And how I did that was my son at the time was in Boy Scouts, and his friend's father owned a company doing what we do now and what Bob is doing, and came up to me and asked me how my ceiling business was doing. And I was like, oh, honestly, it's terrible. Everything is going bad, a recession and all that stuff. He goes, well, why don't you do roofs with me? I'm like, roofs? I said, look at my skin. I'll turn into a prune. Are you kidding me? He goes, no, you dummy. He goes, I've got roofers. I just need you to go out there, inspect, take a look at it, and if they have some storm damage, you help them throughout the claim process. If not, they just need an estimate, you help them out through the process. He goes, I got roofers. We'll take care of that. And long story short, I started doing that part-time. With doing it part-time, became one of their top sales guys. While I had my business, I still had a business in New Jersey I was trying to sell. I started a business in Indiana, and now I was selling roofs in Indiana as well. So I was trying to juggle all three. But that opportunity showed me what was available in the roofing industry. And I slowly merged my way into roofing sales and kind of faded out my ceiling business. And in that time, I went from a couple different companies, becoming a sales guy to a project manager to a sales manager and then a general sales manager before I met Bob. And then we got introduced at a company in Indianapolis. I was the sales manager at the time, and Bob came in, much younger, myself as well. I believe it was it 2014?
It would have been the end of 15, I came in and interviewed with you the fall of 15, late fall, early winter, right. And we'd agreed to. I was going to start, but we decided I was going to wait till January because at that time Rhett was literally in a pumpkin seat because the next story I remember is, so here's how the conversation goes. I was looking for an opportunity in straight commission, and that's what I wanted to do. I answered a Craigslist ad and I met you. I mean, it's the start of a murder plot, right? But
was it Craigslist?
It seriously was Craigslist.
Oh my God.
And so we sit down and we got talking, and you're talking pay structure and you're talking training pay. And the training pay was kind of laughable, but you told me, and I was just like, no, I'm not worried about that. I've got my finances squared away and whatnot. So I was more looking at the big picture of what I could make in a year. And then Dave Ramsey's name got brought up. You shared your story of digging yourself out of debt from a business. And I literally, I felt that connection of and people that follow Dave Ramsey kind of understand that it's just there's a mutual trust there that if you're digging through the same stuff or done what I've done. And so I remember calling Emily. I'm like, hey, I just took a job. I'm going to start, in the spring. And she's like, okay. And then later on, one of my side jobs we would sell videos in the hood gas stations, like cheap $2-3 videos, which actually was pretty good margin. And we were up there. I was running one of them routes one day with Emily on a Saturday because I still have my regular full-time job, and we stopped by because I drove by to show Emily where the office was going to be at, and I'm like, well, George is there. So I remember taking her and Rhett in there, and I was just telling Rhett when you talked to him that he's 8 now, that he literally was in a pumpkin seat the first time that you met him. So I mean, that's as I've been introducing you to the team around here, I say you're the asshole that taught me everything that I know about roofing sales. So
I taught you all the good stuff. I don't know the bad stuff you picked up over the years, but you can't blame me for that. But I got to add to that story. So when you did introduce me to Emily and Rhett, it was a funny thing for me because at that time I was like, I got to hire this guy because Emily is very pretty, and look at Bob. And I said, if Emily married this guy's a salesman. I said, he's going to make some money for himself and for the company. So at that point, I said, you know what, Bob, you're hired. And unfortunately, his sales never came up to equate what he's done with Emily. But no, Bob is he's a great worker. And with this industry, the company that we were working for at the time, they just wanted people with heartbeats. They didn't care.
Right.
Okay. It was all about the numbers. Let's get bodies in here, and you know what? We'll find a handful of good people, and we'll deal with the bad stuff, and we'll clean all that up. It was all about, they were number driven, which that's important. Don't get me wrong. But what I like about your business that you're doing now, and they actually started, and not to go back to them so much, but early on they were about integrity and doing the good thing and doing things right, and then they tasted blood. Once you get the blood in this business, there's a lot of money in this business to be made, but you got to do it right. And they lost focus of that, and the negativity outdid their integrity, and it just became a bad situation. But in that time with them, I met great friends. You probably don't consider me a friend. I consider you a friend.
Absolutely.
Now, you know what I'm saying? But in all seriousness, there were some good people that we met throughout the years there that we stay in touch with today. That's the whole thing with every business, with every person you meet, every opportunity you meet. You meet good people, and it helps you grow. And it's what you've done here is absolutely amazing. A lot of people, I've had a handful of other people that I've known that were, worked under me and started their own thing and didn't quite work out, or not to this level.
Right.
And you can't do a business half-ass. You just can't, because it will expose you.
Yep.
And not in the good times, everybody can make money.
Right.
It's the bad times. That's when it gets you. Not to go back to my business when I had it early on. Everything's going good when you got good money and business is coming in. You see how strong and how much foundation your business has when things go bad. And I got exposed real quick with my ceiling business, but at that time, and going back to Dave Ramsey, I pretty much almost lost everything. I fought through it, didn't have to file bankruptcy, paid everybody off. I got a clean slate, debt-free now, outside of my house. I'm working on that now, but it was it was a learning opportunity for me, and I'm very fortunate that it happened to me early on. Right. It didn't happen to me at 60. It happened to me at 40. So I was able to grow and recover and help our kids as well, teach them more about money and financial and being smart and doing things right. But Bob was he was one of those guys, I'd be doing something, he'd be sitting right there in the corner of the desk. What are we doing, boss? Right. Where are we going? I'm like, go out with that guy. No, I don't want to go out with that. What are we doing? Because I would, with the training with the guys, you'd send them out with different sales reps and different guys. And he's like, I don't like that guy or whatever. I want to go out with you. Let's go knock some doors. I mean, him and a few others they're in my desk, and I love that. Right. And it actually pushed me too, because sometimes when you get behind a desk, you get kind of a little lazy and lackadaisical. Go do this. He inspired me with his attitude. It was 24/7. We'd text each other. Okay, which was fine. You know, it would be Sunday night. He would text me, "What about this? What can we do? This? Can we get this? Can I do this?" I love that. You know, I've got the same work ethic, and that's why I think we've connected so much. But you've done such a great job from when you started crawling on your first roof.
Man, I wish I could. I can take you to that freaking job. And guys, I cannot think of the customer's name to save my
Life.
Well, okay,
it was Jennifer. I don't know her last name.
And then it was an Erie claim, and it was Todd from Erie. And the other company had said there was hail damage, and there was a copper bay window awning thing.
Yep.
And she was like, "I really want to go with you guys," but I was Mr. Honest, and I told her I'd only been doing it for a couple months at that time. And it was another company. And then you kind of sealed the deal, not to give you too much credit, because you're like, okay, we're telling you there's wind damage. We can show you that. Mm-hmm. Would you agree if there was hail damage, that copper would be dinged up? And she's like, yep. And he's like, so pretty much she realized the other company was completely full of crap, and it was a steep roof. And I do remember I set up on the ridge
that was
in the valley.
Yep.
And now it's funny because now I never hardly get on any more roofs. And the other day, we've got a rental house that has metal on it, and we've got to replace a couple panels when we remove this chimney. And I made one of my sales reps stop by and help me. It couldn't be a 512 roof.
Oh, my God.
On the part we were on, and Chris starts laughing at me. He's like, "Boss, you all right?" And I was like, "Yeah, dude, I just don't climb these things very much anymore."
That's
but,
funny.
I mean, and you know, one thing, and I always tell the guys this, like, when I started, Emily was a legit stay-at-home mom with Rhett, and, like, I had to make money. Like, you know, there's other guys we were working with, and nothing wrong with it. They had spouses that were paying all the bills. Like, this was more, you know, was more fun money for them. And, you know, and that's one thing that's been the funnest part for me is giving people opportunity. You can make really good money in the sales part of this. And, you know, some companies will talk about finding like a niche or, you know, kind of your culture. And I've seen success with, you know, late 20-year-olds that are married with some kids, like with some responsibility, you know. And like you said, like, the business model for a lot of them is just put a heartbeat in there. And I mean, sometimes you got to try somebody out, but you know, you got to, you got to watch who you bring in also.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And I think, and I've told you this from day one you started your business, it's in my opinion, it's not about getting 25 guys and hoping your top 5 guys will produce for you and deal with all the garbage. I think it's important to get 5 or 6 guys or whatever number you're comfortable with, train them the right way, and have a solid crew so it doesn't matter who's going to the job.
Yep.
If it's salesman A, B, or C, your customer is seeing the same business model and the same respect for the customer and attitude and professionalism and all of that stuff. Because we used to be our sales pitch when we were hiring people. It was just like, oh yeah, you can make 100,000, you can make 100,000, and that's very true.
Right.
But the reality of it, 2 or 3% of that group of 20 will make that.
Right.
Because the others aren't going to put the work into it.
Right.
So, and for all the guys I've had under me for all these years, I'm going to say maybe 5 or 6
right.
that are truly, like yourself included, and I'll throw Jordan's name out there as well, and a handful of others that when they came in, no matter what they did, if it was roofing, if it was car sales, or if it was whatever, selling bikes or whatever they're doing, they were going to be the best at it.
Right.
And that's what you have to do, regardless of what business you're doing. If you're selling, if you're a carpenter, whatever, you want to be the best at what you're doing. And the problem with this business is people see the big dollars and they think that it's so easy. And ultimately, to me, I consider it to be easy, but it still takes a lot of work.
Right.
I mean, our crews and your crews have the hard job.
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, that's roofing is a brutal job.
Yep.
It absolutely is. And I've got my son and his friend actually helping us out in North Carolina now. And it was funny. He went to college. He was here in Indy. He went for sports management. And he was working for Anytime Fitness as a fitness director, and he was in charge of the establishment there, and they gave him a small base, and they're like, oh, but you're going to make $60,000-$80,000 in commission by bringing people in for special training and all this stuff. And he showed me the numbers. It's like, this doesn't add up, but you know what? Go for it. Give it a shot. And it was here in Kokomo. And he didn't quite work out the way it was supposed to. And I said, not a big deal. Why don't you come home for a year, work for me a little bit, get your feet wet, save up some money, and you know what? You can do whatever you want. But living week to week and barely getting by and struggling, it's not worth it. Come over here. We'll save some money, get you going. He goes, well, Dad, roofing's not my passion. I said, son, roofing's not my passion either, but it makes a hell of a lot of money, okay? So he came home begrudgingly for the first couple months. You can see he just wasn't liking it. North Carolina, the area that we're in, we got hit with a hailstorm. Very rare. It's like the first one in 25 years that they had in our area. He's making a killing. Now he's loving it. My customers and his customers, they're calling me, oh my God, your son, he's so professional, he does a great job. And you can see his attitude changed. He's got a fat bank account right now. He's loving it. So, and regardless if he stays with this for the rest of his life, he may not. It gives him the experience to deal with people, situations, the good, the bad, the whatever. He can go anywhere in the country and do whatever hell he wants. It's a building experience, life experience ultimately, and but again, you gotta put the time in, regardless of what business it is.
Well, and I mean, we had this conversation the other day, I think, on the phone, where it's a life skill, like knowing how to sell, knowing how to deal with people.
Yep.
It's it genuinely, is, and just, but like you said, like there's a lot of people that get in this business, and we've had guys that's come in here, even in our small company, and had really good success, and then we've had other people that haven't, and it's like, I'm always fortunate. I was talking to one of our reps' dads the other day, and he's like, man, I just really appreciate, what you've done for my son. I was like, hey, your son's done a lot for us, so it's not just what we've done for them. Like, I've given other people opportunity, the same opportunity, right. And it's just, like you said, and that's something I was just working. We just hired a production guy a couple months ago, and we're just trying to iron everything out. Ellie just came back from maternity leave 3 weeks ago, so we're kind of all trying to all get back in the groove of things. And I'm just like, guys, I just want to make sure that we make our process, our customer experience, as smooth as possible. And like you said, no matter if I go out there, Emily goes out there, if the sales guy goes out there, or a production guy, they get the same experience, they get the same customer service, in that. But I'm going to ask you, like, what did you see in your son, or like what has helped him be successful? Because like you said, like, you've known a lot of people that's been in this business, and yeah, like one thing you can go back to is, like, one thing I've noticed, I've been fortunate. A lot of the guys I have that's had the most success is they've actually usually had a little money in the bank to start off with, so they weren't. They weren't pressured. Because I remember when I first started working with you, I would come in during the manager meeting, and I'd answer the freaking phone calls, and I'd write all the leads down, and then I'd try to give them to Lindsay, and she'd be like, "No, them are yours," and I'm like, "No," and she's like, "Yeah, do you see any other sales rep like they're rolling in here at 9:05 when the sales meeting starts at 9, so, but like I said, like, and even on the business, like having cash reserves, having cash flow, like, the average business doesn't even last 2 years. So, and being willing to take it slow. I mean, I know you were giving me a hard time the other day, but like technically we filed the LLC when we came back from working with Dave Ramsey in Nashville, and we didn't have the cash. Right. So I set that to the side. I went and worked with you again at another company for almost a year. Yep. And yeah, we flipped a house in there that time that we ran through the business or whatever. But, it was almost a year and a half later before we finally like took off with it and started to hustle and grind. And now people see it, and, it's an overnight success. And like the whole Dave Ramsey stuff, like we just had a film crew in for sponsoring the Dave Ramsey financial curriculum. And, me and Emily's been doing that now for almost 13 years.
That's fantastic.
So like, yeah.
Well, you say overnight success. There isn't a business that's an overnight success.
Right.
From the outside, people looking in, everybody thinks it's an overnight success. They don't see you working on Sunday, Saturday night, taking calls 24/7. Me having my business, not so much as a manager, what we're doing now, but when you have your business, I mean, it's 24/7.
Yeah.
I mean, you wake up in the middle of the night, like it goes from how am I going to get all the work done? How am I going to get payroll paid? How am I going to find more work for my guys? It's a nonstop thing. And people see, oh yeah, you got nice cars, you got a nice house, you got this, you got that, everything's great. But you put the time in.
Right.
And that's, if you own your own business or if you're successful in this business as a project manager or sales guy or something like that, you need to put the time in, because if you don't put the time in, you can make money.
Right.
Okay. You're going to make money when that big storm comes in, and when people can't find enough contractors and they're just looking for anybody who can do it. Yeah, you'll make some money. You'll be great, and you're going to think you're the best sales guy in the world. I don't know how many times when I'm interviewing somebody, oh, I can sell ice to an Eskimo,
Right.
And one of the guys that would say that. Okay, he's still a good friend of ours, but that's the stuff that you hear, and they can, when there's ice there.
Yeah.
But when he's got to go make his own ice, he can't do it, or not him personally, but know what I'm saying in general. So. And going back to what did it take for my son, you gotta. I told him in the very beginning, your customers are not. They're gonna buy. I mean, they're buying our product. You have to have a good product.
Right.
You have to have a good company. You've got to be solid. You've got to have the right equipment, a good team. You got to get it done efficiently. You got to do quality work. You have to do all that. Okay. Once you establish that, and that's the person's responsibility to make sure that you're good too. They should be, as much as you're interviewing them, they should be interviewing you to make sure you're a good, solid company and you're going to do the right thing. But on top of that, what I told him, I said, it doesn't matter what you're selling. Your customer that you're sitting across the kitchen table from, they're buying from you because they trust you at the end of the day. That's the ultimate thing, because if something goes wrong, they're not going to call the office. They're going to call you Sunday night, say, hey, I've got a leak, or this didn't happen, or whatever. So if you can build that trust and you're a trustworthy person and you do what you say and you contact them if there's an issue, trucks break down, materials get back ordered, things get damaged during construction. If you're proactive and you reach out to the homeowner and you keep them in the loop and let them know what's going on, and you show that integrity and stuff like that you're going to be proactive and you're not going to hide stuff from them, you build your trust. And now you're getting a pipeline.
Yep.
Now that person's going to tell this person, this person, this person. It's going to keep on going on and on and on. So I think that's the biggest thing is, he's a great kid, hard worker, and he's seeing the benefits of this industry. And again, I always joke with him, and I'll tell the story in front of every single customer. It's like, this kid isn't passionate about roofing.
Right.
He is now. So,
and it's like, for me, like, it's way past, like, for me and Emily, it's like, I want a legacy for my family, but for us especially, it's like to be able to provide quality jobs in a small town that everybody has to drive to the big city to get a decent job, and also just like the sales reps with the opportunity. And like, I'll be honest, one thing that I struggle with is hiring like support staff, because like the sales, I've been successful at the sales. I've been able to make the money that it's easy for me to pour into a sales guy and like be like, hey, this is the kind of money that you can make, and it's not as easy when I look at an Adam or I look at an Ellie, because that position is going to cap out at a certain thing, because I even had a conversation with one of the sales guys the other day, and because somebody asked me what I was paying one of my support staff, and I said, I respected that sales rep enough that I was fine with saying it, but I said, next time don't ask me that in front of that person. And the sales rep's like, I don't care what you pay them. He's like, my potential is unlimited. The more I work, and for me, it's so the three that I talk about a lot is Nick, Chris, and Cody. Nick, I inquired when I bought another company out. He was swinging a hammer for not that a slight hourly wage. And I saw something in Nick, and I was like, you need to be in sales. And I actually told his previous boss that before they came to work for me. And he told me that I was wrong. And that's okay. And so then I set Nick down, but it was about this time of year when he was coming to work for me. I was like, Nick, I really need you to swing a hammer. We got to get this stupid flip house finished this winter. And then let's make a line that in March 1, your sales. Okay. And it was for him, like he had to put the work in, but I was still running most of the leads. So in the beginning, I just took him along with me. And I remember the first 4 deals we had. The first one, I signed up, showed him how I did it, and then slid everything over to him and worked through our process of turning it into the office to get the job built. And then the next one, I let him do a little more. Then the third and fourth one, like I let him sign the contract, overcome the objections, and it took off. Well, so Nick did that for about a year, and he's like, hey, I got a friend that wants to work for me, Chris. And I'm like, okay, let me tell you this. We don't hire buddies because none of them are worth a shit. And he's like, no. He's like, I've actually had buddies that's wanting to work here, and I told him no. So Chris shows up. Nick called me, and me and Emily were in the truck and going on a vacation that you tease me about all the time. And
non-stop vacations, this guy. It's unbelievable.
We were going down to South Carolina to see our friend Maggie and Hunter and Turner and whatnot. So, and Nick called me. He's like, hey, who do you want me to have this guy that's interested in working for us reach out to? I was like, have him reach out to Emily. First thing with the sales rep. Let's see if he'll even follow up. Literally 30 seconds later, he texts Emily, hi, Emily, my name's Chris. I'm good friends with Nick. So we hire Nick. So we hire Chris. Chris has success. So he has success for about 6 months, and then their buddy Cody shows up. And Cody tells a story now. He's like, Nick was smart. He went to private school. So I knew that he was smart, and that's why he had success. He goes, but Chris is dumb. And if Chris had success, I knew I could do it. And then now Cody, he worked 2 jobs for about 6 months, and then it was just this spring technically that he started full time. But he had 2 bigger projects that he was working on bidding. And he told me, he's like, boss, the day both of them sign and commit and I have a check, he's like, I'm quitting my job. And I'm pretty confident both of them jobs committed on the same day.
Wow.
And I said, all right, Cody, you quit tonight, right? And then he got cold feet. And he had to call Chris, and Chris had to say, no, Cody, this is what you're doing.
Right.
Because Chris and Cody had worked at the same place. So for me, it just, like, I love the sales, and I still love getting out there. I had to run an adjuster meeting. I've had to run more this year than any other year, just for as many guys as we got, of just them being double booked. And I still enjoy getting out there, dealing with the adjusters, talking to customers, because sometimes getting behind the desk is boring for me. Absolutely. Emily will even tell you that every once in a while she's like, get out of the office, you're grumpy, and go out in the field. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, well, it is a leap of faith for guys to, and I don't know what your pay structure is or whatever, but the company I work for now, I mean, it's commission only.
Yep.
There's no base salary, so it's whatever you put in, you get out.
Yep.
So for me personally, I like it that way.
Right.
Because, to me, there are no limits.
Yep.
So, and as you might know, I may vacation a little bit as well. I've got a beautiful wife that likes to travel, and I like to go with her. But we're at a good point of our lives where we have that flexibility, and the company I work for is great. They give us the flexibility as well. But having that commission-based structure only, it's scary.
Right.
It's scary for a lot of people. And when you see someone come in your door, such as yourself at the time, when Rhett was, I don't know how old he was at the time, but I mean, like you said, he's in a car seat there. It's scary for you or anybody to go back to their wife or their spouse and say, hey, I'm taking this job. He said I can make $100,000, but it's commission only.
Right.
I get a small training fee for the first month or two, whatever it is. Most spouses be like, are you out of your mind?
Right.
Especially if people have never been in the roofing industry.
Yep.
So it is very scary. But if you have a personality like yourself, and I'll throw Jordan out there and a few others, if you have that motivation and you get the right training and support from the company you work for, the benefits outweigh it tremendously. But it's scary for people, and I get that. I totally get that. But, having a business, my own business for years ago, and I've always been accustomed to the more you work, the more you're going to get paid.
Right.
I've never had even though I got a paycheck from my company, it was not. It was me generating it and my team.
It was $3.50 an hour by the time you figured how many hours you work.
All the time you put into it, but it's, I don't know. It's with every business. If you ask me, there's you got a select few that are going to stay with you, work hard. And as a business owner or as a manager, whatever, you want to bring in people, again, that represent you and your company the best. But it's also important to make them successful,
right? Because
when they're successful and they're making money, they're happier, and it makes you look good as well as an owner, as a manager, whatever it is. I mean, you can't totally babysit them and do everything for them, but you got to give them the tools to succeed,
right?
And you got to be there to answer their calls,
yep.
regardless if it's a Sunday night, and some may not agree with that, and people like to shut off their phones for the weekend. It's not my personality. I know it's not your personality, but if the person that you're hiring or that's doing this knows that they can reach out to you, and you're there to support them or give them the answer or help them out whatever way, that gives them the motivation to move forward and help your company grow.
Well, and I mean, for us, it's really nice whenever me and Emily are doing the hiring of the salespeople, because she goes there as the wife, and we took a playbook out of a play out of Dave Ramsey's playbook, and we do a spousal interview at the end. So Emily can be like, hey, your wife realizes that you're going to work late, and that's one thing that I always say that during the interview process, because I remember as soon as I started working with you, I could pick them guys out instantly who were going to make it, because I'd be like, hey man, what's your spouse think of this? Oh, they don't like that it's straight commission. And it's 2 weeks later, I'm like, hey George, where's that guy at? Yeah, he didn't make it. And so I reiterate that. I'm like, guys, your spouse has to support you. And I also try to tell the guys have some money saved, because I remember when Chris was going to come and work for us, I was like, Chris, you're not going to get paid for, you may not get paid for a month. He goes, I know. And he told me I think he had over $10,000 saved, or he had 6 or 9 months saved up of all his bills or something like that. I'm like, sweet. And he's just taken off with it. And, and then I'm also teaching, and I've been fortunate that I feel like that later 20 age generation, they don't want the factory job kind of thing. And maybe it's just who we found. But it's they want the opportunity to make, and, like I said, and I always try to be intentional about thanking the spouse. Hey, thanks for your support. Chris's fiance, Lexi, she's feisty. I love giving her crap all the time, but it's fun on our end to be able to pour into them guys. And another thing that I like about it is the freedom. Cody brings his son Joey. Joey's 4, 5, and just seeing him come into the office, knowing that he can jump in the truck with him. It's not every day, but it's, and it's for us. You probably hearing the freaking kids in the back of this podcast in the background. They're driving me nuts right now. My kids are out of school today. But it's also, for me, it's part of building. And I would rather build a smaller company. I'd rather build the company a little slower and have that family-like atmosphere, and and just have that, because as as we all know, it's flying by. Red is 8, he'll be 9. So pretty much when I look at him, that means I've been in this career now for almost 9 years. That's crazy for me to think. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and you're doing a great job with that, because that was one thing where, great kids, great family. My business, when I had my business, it controlled my life.
Right.
Totally. And I always made it to the sporting games, and
yep.
I coached when I could, and I did all that stuff. But after the game, I was running back to work.
Right.
I missed out on that stuff. And I've had that conversation with before, that you're keeping them involved. That's fantastic. And if they take a liking to this business and can be involved and help your business grow as well, that's fantastic too. So there is a balance.
Yep.
But this business, and again, gives you that balance.
Right.
You're saying the mid 20-year-old people and kids and stuff like that, and my kids are mid 20s, early 30s as well. So they don't want that 9-to-5 job anymore.
Right.
I don't know if it was from COVID or just everything. I don't think this society is going to go back to that 9-to-5, 40-hour week. this job or this occupation gives you the flexibility. I mean, you can almost set your own schedule for the most part. You know, obviously you got to work with your homeowners and your customers, but you can there's some wiggle room there. So if you wanted to work a Sunday and take off on Monday, if you had something going on Monday, you know, schedule something for Sunday if you can. So there's great opportunity, great money, and great flexibility with this whole industry. It's a great industry, and unfortunately, in my opinion, and even, you know, there are so many companies that want to do the right thing in the beginning and then kind of taste blood, and then they lose all focus of why they got into the business. And unfortunately, it's more than don't. I mean, there's only a small group of contractors, yourself included, that are, you know, if you screw up, things happen.
Yep.
You honor it, you back it up, you don't point fingers, you just take care of it. That's what customers want. Yep. Customers don't care whose fault it is. Yep. They just want it fixed. Okay, they trusted you to get the job done, and it's your job to fix it. And if you stick by that stuff, you'll always be busy.
We literally had a job. They went out and did it yesterday. It was a metal roof with old wood siding, and some of it was rotted, and the crew had to cut further up than the homeowner wanted. But nobody communicated with the homeowner, and he came home, and he's like, what the heck? Well, it was rotted. So I sent 2 guys out yesterday, and it's fixed, and the production guy texted me. He's like, homeowner's happy as heck. And I'm like, yep. And there wasn't any, like, part of me wanted to be like, hey, sir, like, you should have known, like, this old house. But I told the sales rep, I was like, that's why it has to start with the sales. Like, if it's rotted, point it out, you know. Yeah. And, yeah, I mean, like you said, like, you just – and I also tell Emily this, like, you know, and this is another thing that I take away from Dave, like, just from Dave Ramsey's playbook, like, just take care of it. Like, there's certain things that they don't need to call and ask me, like, hey, we need to do this? Like, yes, and I've even instilled that in our crew. Our main roofing crew, Edgar, has been with me 5 years. Like, he knows that if he thinks, should this OSB need changed out, just change it out. Like, you know, and most, you know, pictures and whatnot. And, yeah, and it's just consistency. That is one thing that I feel like nobody wants to say committed to anything. And like, there's days, like, I joke with the team, I was like, there's weeks I don't make any money, and they laugh. I'm like, no, you guys think I'm joking, but you know, when my metal supplier the other day dropped a $40,000 bill because they hadn't billed me in 2 months, like, I was like, I always joke with Emily, I'm like, how much is it? And they're Amish, it's funnier than heck. Adam walks up, he's like, hey, the mail guy needs $4.50 to take this thing from Tree City. I was like, send it back. And I was being a joke. I was being funny. And Adam's like, really? I was like, no, get $5 out of your wallet. And I said, I just had a 20. I didn't have a 5. And what it was he was sending candy for the kids. So I called the boss. I was like, hey, next time put enough postage on that. But, you know, at the end of the day, like, you know, do the right thing. Like, one thing that I learned from you, it was like, repair a couple shingles for free, ask for a 5-star review, and just ask for referrals. Because like, and I still get phone calls. Hey, Bob, you repaired 3 shingles for me in my old house when I lived here. Because I always tell the story. One of the first leads I went with you on was a neighborhood that had a Pendleton address right off of 65.
April. Right?
Yes. Yeah, that was one of the first full roofs I got. We did a half a roof for a realtor. Right. But we got up on that 2-story house, and you just look and just see so many houses with shingles missing. And you look at me, you're like, hey, if you pretty much blood in your knuckles by knocking doors, I'll not tell another sales rep about this. And I cut my teeth in that neighborhood. And last year, Nick sold a job up there, and I never did make it up there, but I told Nick, I was like, man, I need to drive through that neighborhood. I was like, because literally, like, how many nights I spent till dark knocking up there, and that one kind of loop where April was at and stuff, like, I had 6 or 8 houses in a row that I was helping with claims, and then freaking that crew that tore off the wrong roof, and the adjuster had rescheduled 3 times, and I had to call the adjuster and tell him what happened. Unfortunately, the wind damage was so bad, and I had enough before pictures. But, you know, and one thing that I've always appreciated about you was your support of me. First company we worked together at, I had the opportunity to go work for Dave Ramsey. You told me to go do it. I come back, end up at a different company. May or may not have influenced you to come over and be the sales manager. Then thank God that's past lawsuit time, so they can't use us against us.
We're good. We're all good now.
and then when it was time to start my own company, like, you were pissed at me that day, but you also, I remember you looking Rob in the eyes and said, I'm going to do everything I can to help him get started without hurting anything here. And that means a lot, because what you've seen today, the few team members that you actually got to meet today, like, that's because of your support. And the Revolt group that I'm part of, we're always talking about legacy. Like, part of your legacy is going to live through here, live through my kids. And I mean, I know we razz each other a lot, because Cody's like, you're the guy that freaking post all the time on his or comment on his Facebook post.
Oh my gosh!
So I know we razz each other a lot, but we appreciate the support. You know, Emily had to take off. She was going away. She was going on vacation this weekend. So it must have been you. Must have sensed her to get out of here. But you know, so that's always been huge support for us.
Well, no, I appreciate that, and again, what you've done here in a short amount of time. I mean, you've stuck to your guns. I mean, you're doing everything the right way. And to kind of go back on Dave Ramsey, I mean, regardless if you're in this industry or not, if you're seeing this, look up Dave Ramsey. Right. I'm telling you, Dave Ramsey, and if you follow, his procedures and his mentality with everything, just in life in general. It helps your finances. It helps your home life. It helps everything. He's awesome. And again, that was one of the things that we clicked on in the very beginning. That when you met me, I was still quite a bit in debt. And when you're a sales manager, you gotta get the perception that you're not, and everything is hunky dory. Oh, I was up to my eyeballs in debt at the time, but I got out of that. But it was Dave Ramsey, and the steps and everything that he's got are just, and they're such easy stuff. Right. The 7 baby steps. I don't want to get on a big Dave Ramsey thing, but again, that changed my life.
Yep.
Getting in this industry at that time changed my life. Because in North Carolina and Indiana, they don't even do drop ceilings anymore. I mean, I thought I was going to retire doing drop ceilings. They don't do that anymore. So to get in this industry that I say is recession-proof, because you're always going to have storms. AI is not going to take it over.
Yep.
Okay? I mean, you still got to replace roofs, and as long as we're going to be alive at least.
Yep.
So it's a business that keeps on going. But you got to do it the right way. As a sales rep, as an owner, like even doing this podcast. I mean, you're always on Facebook, and I'm always busting your chops how much you could sell if you weren't on Facebook 24/7. But you're doing things the right way. And kudos to that, and it's kudos to your wife,
Absolutely.
Being a part of it, because owning a business and putting the hours in, and she puts the hours in as well. I'm not saying,
absolutely.
But you got to have someone that supports that. And my wife was a stay-at-home mom, raising all those kids, and I'll bust her chops like, "Oh, she didn't work, work," and
she worked.
Oh yeah. Then she punches me. So, she had the hardest job.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's that support team where she lets you work the 12, 14 hours a day, coming home at 10 o'clock, then your day's done, and then you go back on the computer and you're doing estimates or you're doing whatever until 12 o'clock in the morning, then boom, go to bed. You wake up at 5:30, 6 o'clock, you're doing it all over again. And you're maybe not doing everything you're supposed to or helpful with the family because you're doing this. So it's it's a partnership.
Absolutely.
That you got to do. So, and it's not easy. So anybody thinking that owning a business is easy, it is not. And even when you first started, you're like, oh yeah, now I understand why you did that. Now I understand why you said that. And I told you, because when you're on the other side of the table, we see the good. You don't see what it takes to get to that point. So now you see it.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you're right. I mean, and also the support staff. Like, I've got Adam. Like we were saying this off camera. Like I looked at Adam and said, "Hey, we're going to do 26 podcasts this year, and this is our 25th one. So we're going to hit that. It works out perfect because the last one I want to be kind of a wrap with me and Emily, because the first one was me and Emily, just kind of introducing it, telling a little bit of our story. So when you text me yesterday, like, hey, you got some time tomorrow, I'm going to stop by. I'm like, oh, absolutely. And I text Adam, I was like, hey, I think we're going to end up doing a podcast. And he's like, okay, which Adam knows how I am. Like, he knows stuff's going to change instantly. If so, but, you know, and it's just, and the support staff that we have with Adam, with Ellie, with, Jonathan, like a lot of people don't see them out working. Like, yeah, the sales guys, the in-house production guys, like they're out and about. But, Adam's, throwing in a Google lead at 9 o'clock on a Saturday, or Ellie's answering the phone still. And last weekend, I'm like, last weekend being Thanksgiving, Wednesday, I called her. I was out doing something. I was like, leave the work phone on Emily's desk if she's in there, or my desk if I'm in there. You're not taking it. I said, it's holiday weekend, like, take it off. And she's like, are you sure? And I'm like, no, absolutely. Just because they're no different. Like, and another thing that I say, and John Maxwell said this, like, when you're owning the business, not to get down this rabbit hole, it's like when you're paying most of your team more than you're paying yourself. Like I always say, Emily's the lowest paid person here. We'd all be screwed if she wasn't here, So like that's one thing that you've got to, for the bigger payoff or for the freedom. And yeah, there's luxuries that I have that I get it, not everybody has, but like you said, like it's just, it's a hustle and grind. It's a spouse has to support it. And, I'm the same way. Like I've said, being a stay-at-home mom is easy. And one thing that I've said, like, in this country, we got to quit demonize working moms and stay-at-home moms, because half the people want to demonize the working mom. Oh, you should be staying home, and then vice versa, the other half. And it's like, let the moms do like what they're called to do, because they seriously have the hardest job putting up with us and the kids. So how many kids you have, you might as well at least add one more, And then with us, we consider a sales team. Most of them are kids. Nick left his computer on the out in the office desk the other day, and Emily wrapped it up and put to Nick from Santa. But it's all right. Chris lost his MacBook.
Oh no!
Went and bought a new one. Came home, took his book bag out of his work truck, opened it up.
It was in there.
It was in there.
Oh my God! Unbelievable. You'll have that. Oh, geez. So,
but as we wrap this up, any final words? Any final, George wisdom? I mean, hopefully you don't get your phone out, because you've. I told you that how many years ago? I'm glad you finally learned now, Bob.
No, it's good to see that you're doing it the way you are. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Proud of you, Emily, and your whole team. I mean, just meeting the guys here today and the girls. I mean, just everybody's on board, and that shows that you're treating them well. Because if you don't treat your people well, they're not going to treat you well. Okay, and they're going to be behind your back. They'll be starting businesses behind your back. Right. You know how that is, right?
Yeah, no, because like I said, I can look you square in the eyes and say,
yeah,
I was honest and upfront.
Yeah, but no, I understand that. So, we've always had a good bond, I feel, over the years, and even good times, bad times, it was always we reach out to one another. But you keep on doing the right things. That's what it's about, and it's what I've learned as I've gotten older, give you some gray hair wisdom, is that you do have to enjoy life more. I mean, it's not all work, and we get caught up in this. We get caught up in your business and what we're doing and stuff like that, and you lose focus of what's important sometimes. So, but you got to have a balance. You got to go on those vacations. Yep. You got to let your people go on vacation. You got to let them take a break too. Even though this is a 24/7 thing for you, it's not going to be a 24/7 thing for them. They got their families when they go home, and they got to break away from it. Even though this is the most important thing for you, right? They still need that balance too. And I always lost focus of that, because I would be the same thing. I'd be texting you guys when I needed something from you 24/7. But whatever. But there is definitely a balance. Stick to doing things the right way. Don't can never take away quality work, professionalism, the trust, the hard work, all that stuff. You'll make money. If you do all that stuff, you're always going to make money. Okay? Even if it costs you a couple dollars, right now, long term, there's one person judging you.
Yep.
Ultimately.
No, absolutely.
He makes the final decisions. So you were telling me a story earlier that, about a former employee that you kind of helped out with, with rent and buying a house and all that stuff, and maybe not left the house quite the way you wanted it and stuff like that. But he doesn't see what he did. He sees what you did.
Right.
That's all that matters. So it's almost like tipping at a restaurant.
Right.
The tip isn't about the waitress. The tip is about you.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Well, and we just had that conversation, like a lot of self-reflection, like how did you cause that? Like just step back and it's, if you want to see change in this world, like, if you're tired of trash being in the ditches, then start picking up trash in the ditches. If you want hungry kids fed, then start feeding hungry kids. Like, even if you just start with one family or whatever, like, like the Dave Ramsey class, I think it's 6 schools that we sponsored this year. Like, it started with one. When we started, like, it started with one truck. When the Dave Ramsey team was down here filming earlier this week, of course, I wanted to drive Emily's Denali truck. It's a nice truck. And they asked me, they're like, so what did the fleet look like when you started? I said, well, I had this old beat-up F-150 I bought from this retired guy that...
You should have said your Dave Ramsey truck.
Yeah, there you go. And then I bought an old, rusted-out 3/4-ton truck to pull trailers, the first year. And I sold that truck to my little brother, so I see it every once in a while. And the first diesel truck I bought, I'll never forget, I took a picture and I sent it to you because you used to always have your ladder sticking out 20 feet out the back. And I took a picture, and I just saw that picture the other day, and I said, trying to be like you, George. Yeah. And that truck now, my crew's driving, and it's got probably 300,000 miles on it. And I told Emily, I was like, when they're done driving it, it's going in the barn at the farm. Yeah. I said, that truck may be around forever, just kind of as a and I jump in it every once in a while, pulling a trailer in the dump or something for him. It's old GMC. That freaking thing drives like a Cadillac. Emily's like, I still love driving that truck. So it's just, I look up, and it's kind of crazy to say that I guess I've really known you almost 9 years now. Like, it's just, in relationships, man, there's so many relationships that don't last a year or two, and that's just a credit to, your integrity and the person that you are. Because like I said earlier, like, you supported me through, my life. And we had a team member leave earlier this year, like, hey, the season's over, and that's fine. Like, I look back at when I worked at Dave Ramsey, and I just literally, my old boss down there, his birthday was yesterday. I just texted him, like, his support of me, like, when I went to leave, like, he's like, gosh darn it, I knew the day was going to come. I just didn't want it to come this soon. Yeah. And I don't know. It's like, I know that, and I've tried to prepare myself for this. I've said that with my team. Like, I know I've got to be happy when somebody's got to move on. And I want quality people here. One of my high school kids text me the day that helps me. He's like, hey, you inspired me to start my own business, so I may not work for you next summer. I'm like, that's great. Like, really, I want to inspire. Like, at the end of the day, like, it's we are judged, and I'm not even necessarily worried about God judging me. It's just Ed Milet said this. He feels like the day he meets his maker, God's going to show him a version of what he could have been, and he wants to make sure that he looks and sees that mirror. Like, giving it all, like, I don't have to have a $50 million business, but if God's calling me to do $15 million and I want to be comfortable and stay at 5, then that's a problem. Like, because that's 3 times the amount of families that I can affect by providing jobs. That's more students we can sponsor, or however that looks like. So,
well, my opinion, I mean, every person you meet, there's for a reason. Yep. I mean, just the way I got into this, I mean, just waiting for them to come back from their weekend Boy Scout trip. We're talking to the mom and dads, and this dad comes out to me and asks me, you know, how's my business? Never in my life did I think I'd be doing roofs.
Right.
Never. And for me to just listen to him, try it out, like it, and move forward with that, got me to the position to meet with you.
Yep.
And who knows, you might have met with another sales manager,
Yep.
and it might have been the same. Who knows?
Yep.
But you always run into people for a reason, and it's. I always say that we're actors in a play.
Yep.
We're just following his lead.
Yeah,
everything's coming.
There are no accidents.
No, everything is set up. So, I mean, I probably met Adam today so he can start doing podcasts for me now.
There you go.
But who knows? But will you go to North Carolina? I'll fly you out. But and I'll pay you more than Bob, okay? But no, in all seriousness, I mean, everything is for a reason. Everything is lined up. For me to call you yesterday, and you bust my chops every time you see my wife Mindy likes to post on Facebook all the time. You're in Indiana, you didn't call me, and we were driving here. I was like, I got to call Mom.
Well, and the last time, like, we tried, and it was more my fault. And like when I was like, Emily, I got to make this work. He's offering to come to Rushville because every time I'm like, I'll meet you up there. Like, I get it. Like, you know, and I wanted you to see the office one time. Yep. Like, I told Emily that, like, that's something that I'm proud of what we've accomplished. And like I said, it goes back to, like, you don't know who you're going to meet, you know, and another thing that I've really been working on is, like, genuinely just enjoying life. Like today, I took Rhett and Riley to Home Depot, and we had to get some stuff for that rental house that we're fixing up to get on the market. And like, we're driving through the country roads, and it rained last night, and there's water puddles in the road. And the first one I hit, they start screaming and cheering like we just won the Super Bowl. And they're like, Dad, hit that one up there. Yeah. So for like 5 minutes, I'm hitting every stupid pothole, probably ripped the front end out of the transit van. But like, the kids literally were like so excited. And I'm just like, that's one thing. A lot of the team's been through some training. Adam's been through there. And one thing that they recommended, like, get down and like play with your kids. Mm-hmm. Like, just don't sit up here, but if they're playing on the floor, like, and like, try to look at things through kids' eyes. Mm-hmm. Like, 99% of the time, kids are happy. Like, when we moved back from Nashville and moved back up here, our house hadn't sold in Nashville like this. It was kind of a mess. And unlike what Dave Ramsey said, we had paid almost that entire mortgage off, so we had a massive chunk of equity coming out, and money was running out very fast. And that year on Christmas, like, we got the kids nothing. Mm-hmm. And like, I still like, and I know it's not about the gifts. Like, the kids don't know. They'll never know. We were living in a house. It was freezing cold. They were in double layers of pajamas. Emily went through a miscarriage. Like, so much like crap. And like, I love Facebook memories because I'll screenshot them and I'll send them to Emily and be like, that was just 3 years ago. And she's like, oh my gosh, you know, and just like, but if we just sit back and enjoy it, and especially the kids, like, I mean, my wife is not the emotional type at all. And Reagan turned 7, right? I don't want to say her wrong age here on a podcast. I know when she turned 7 on the 16th. But
thanks, Adam.
Like, Emily, she was like, she like choked up, and I'm like, what? And she's like, Reagan's 7. I'm like, yeah, Rhett will be 9. And like, I always think of like the first one, and I was like, yeah, Rhett will be 9 in May. And I'm like, are you choking up? And she's like, shut up. Let me have my moment.
I'm not crying, you're crying.
But it's like, you know, and I'm like, no, like, let's enjoy it. Like, I went on that father-son trip with Rhett in August. Like, that was, and I used to, like, apologize to the team. Like, hey, guys, I'm sorry I'm going to be out of town for this. Now it's like, hey, guys, you know the hours I put in? Because like, one thing I did a really good job of like, hey Nick, make sure you enjoy it. And he's went to Thailand, he's went to Hawaii since he's worked for me, and I was like, yeah, you know, there at the beginning, like, I was like, don't practice what I preach, because I don't practice what I preach, but make sure you go do that. But I mean, that's one thing Emily does a better job of, like, hey, remember we agreed on doing this, and I'm like, no, absolutely. So
never be apologetic for family time,
right,
and taking time for yourself, because you know. My cousin's wife just passed a couple of weeks ago. It was unexpectedly. She had cancer. She was fighting for about a year, kept it quiet. But, 67, I mean, it may sound old to most, but I'm going to tell you, once you're 54, 67 is not old at all. 70 is not old, 80 is not old, believe me, but it goes quick, and you don't know when your day is going to be here, and as important it is to make money and build a business and a profession and all that stuff. You gotta realize why you're doing it.
Yep.
Because you lose focus of that, myself included, for many years. So it takes you, and you talk about 7 and 9. I mean, my kids are all out of school, college, and all that stuff. So it's like, whew, man. I mean, it goes in a blink of an eye. It goes so quick. But it's all good, and you know what? You're able to you look back at those times, and I look back where when I was 3-4 months behind on that big old Dodge Cummins, like, oh shit, they're gonna repo this thing. This is no joke. They're coming for it. It's like, oh my god, I remember those days, and now we buy cars with cash.
Yeah.
It's changed over the year. It took me a hell of a long time to get to that point. But it's it's good to go back to those memories and picture where you were, and now you look in the mirror today and say, wow, we've come a long way, but still got a long way to go.
Well, and a whole Dave Ramsey to pay cash for things like, and I won't mention the sales rep's name because I don't want to totally embarrass him, but he came to me, and what he owes on his house, he has 3 times that in savings. And he's like, yeah, my mom told me I should pay my house off. And I said, thanks for asking your boss, prick. He was like, I knew what the hell you were going to tell me. But I was just like, bud, like, you're in your 20s. Yeah. Like, you just don't realize, like, we're in the process of building a house. We got the septic in, doing the dirt work next week. And, like, I'm excited. Like, we freaking sweat and blood and tears pouring into to be able to build that, and I've been very vocal of sharing with people that we're as Dave says, we're moving at the speed of cash. Like, we're paying cash for it as we build it. And you know what, if something hiccups, it'll just sit there, and like, you know what, if for some reason the septic's in for 6 months and we can't start putting something in the ground until next spring, it's not going to hurt anything. Like, the septic's paid for, and it's just like you said earlier, like, look up Dave Ramsey or like them principles, just because it changes so many lives, and it's just it affords an opportunity, and it's just I don't know, like last year I took most of my sales reps through FPU class, and I'm just gonna every winter just run a class, and anybody that works here, and we had a couple from the outside come last year, like it'll be open on Sunday afternoons, just because that. I mean, it's just it'll change your life.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you. I mean, I know you were hustling and not struggling, but like working hard to get your kids' schools paid for. And I'm sure there's days that you probably thought, man, these bastards don't realize like what I'm doing for them.
Yeah. And your kids, they don't until they get to this age.
Right.
The early 20s and early 30s. That's when they start living on their own.
Yep.
And start doing stuff like that, and they're just trying to support themselves. Yep. And then they realize that I had a full house,
right, that
I was trying to keep going, and they didn't know half the battles, because when 2008, 9, and 10 came, my house, the market went bad, the real estate market went bad. If I would have sold my house, I would have lost $80,000.
Right.
I couldn't afford to downsize.
Right.
So I had to do whatever I could.
Yep.
Mindy was working jobs. I was working 3 jobs. Again, I had 2 ceiling businesses. The sales manager job with the other companies and stuff, doing the roofing, and it was just, we did whatever we could to get through it.
Right.
And even my lawyer and my accountant back in New Jersey with my ceiling business, they're like, you're stupid. Why don't you just file bankruptcy? Right. That's why we got laws here. I'm like, well, I physically can pay these guys. I made an agreement with these guys. I'm paying them $500 a month to clear off my debt. And I can, until I physically can't do it anymore, then I'll wave the white flag. But I was able to pay everybody off, and it gives you such a good feeling when you pay everybody off.
Right.
You know, it says something about your character too as well. You know, I mean, don't take the easy way out.
Right.
You know, not to get too crazy, but like with marriage too.
Right.
You know, we're going
Your
on
poor 30 years.
That poor girl.
I'll get an address.
That poor girl.
Message me and you can send her your condolences. But
but again, I mean, that's a lot of give and take. I mean, life is not easy.
It's a lot of living, and it's just a lot of accepting, you know, and just choosing to love that person, love that job. Because and that's why I also try to tell the sales reps, like, some days, like, it's going to be,
it's going to suck.
It's going to be hard. Like, some days you're, you know, it's just, and in this business, and I'm not going to mention names, but it's like, you just never, there's people that you never thought would betray you. Yeah, but, you know, I've always looked at the other side. Like, there's also people that you never thought would afford that opportunity that, you know, that you got. Like, you know, the first year in business, there was one particular client that I ended up doing 4 jobs for, and it was a big boost that year. Like, you know, so I was humbled that person would go with me. But then, like I said, like, I mean, there's neighbors or, like, you know, people that your spouse work with that are like, you know, I don't know. It's funny now that I'm in business, like, I watch other small business owners to see how quick they pay me, because I hate it. Like, we had the mower service from a local company down here, and they sent me a bill yesterday. And they were going to deliver it like a week and a half ago. And when they emailed over the bills, they're like, hey, we just dropped them off yesterday, so I didn't want to bill you until we dropped them off. And I was like, I forwarded them over to Ellie. I was like, get these added up and get them paid. Like, it's just, I don't know. That's the reputation that I want to have, because especially in a rural area, I always joke, and somebody's probably going to listen to this and get offended, but it's okay. Farmers especially, they're one of 2 ways. They will either take months to pay you, or they will pay you before the job's done. I mean, I've had customers hand me checks, pay them full, and they're just starting to lay shingles. Like, you know, so I don't know. It's just a different mindset of like, you know, and like you said, that has more to do with them than it does you. So, but no, I mean, like I said this 20 minutes ago as we wrap up. Like, I just want to thank you for hopping behind the mic. You didn't even resist when I was like, Adam walked back. He's like, hey, I want to do a podcast. Yeah. And, you know,
nothing for nothing. My agent still hasn't got a call. I mean, this doesn't come for free, you know. So you pay your invoices fast, you say. Okay, good. My people invoice you tomorrow.
Hey, Adam, if that one comes in, there's no postage on it, send it back, please.
Yeah, no, this was fun, and you kind of caught me off guard a little bit, you know, that.
You didn't put your makeup on.
Well, in fairness, I mean, I got a face for radio. Yeah. Okay, and to be honest with you, so it was kind of caught me off guard, but it's cool. I would, you know what? Not a better person to do it for.
Appreciate it.
You know what I'm saying? So this is you're going in the right direction, and continue going in the right direction. You know, and just keep doing what you're doing. Take care of your team. Okay, because without your team, you're nothing. And one thing we didn't mention, you gotta give kudos to your crews.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You know, I mean, that's why I tell Brody and his friend Nick as well that they're working with us now. I'm like, you know what, guys, we got the easiest job in the world. Those guys are the superstars,
yep.
And even the customers like, oh, you know, you guys are great. No, it's those guys. Those guys, they're doing. They don't complain. Well, they complain. We just don't understand. We don't understand when they're complaining to us. But long story short, I mean, without the crews, without your team behind the scenes, you don't exist without your wife. With everything, I mean, it's a package deal. So, no, you're doing a great job. Keep it up, and like I said, if we can negotiate for next year, I might be able to, you know, for a small fee, come back out.
Yeah.
I mean.
Do some sales training.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Appreciate you tuning in to this edition of the Hoel Roofing and Remodeling Podcast. Thank you.
All right. Take care.